leaving you. My life sentence is served, bitch, and it's just
Did you watch the SuperB Bowl? Did you watch the Toilet Paper USA halftime show? Who watched it? Might need to do a social media fast though. The anxiety is crippling. I'll never do the sports ball thing. Yes, the anxiety is crippling. I can assure you that. Definitely for myself. Getting the sun in my face. That is live. All right, cool. How's the dogs? They're good. Hot dogs. All right, let's check out the news. Who's this guy?
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Narmeen Sheikh. In Minneapolis, at least 50 people were arrested outside a federal building as they were marking the 1-month anniversary of Renee Good's fatal shooting by an immigration officer. Renee Good's wife, Becca Good, issued a statement over the weekend saying, quote, "You know my wife's name and you know Alex's name, but there are many others in this city being harmed that you don't know. Their families are hurting just like mine, even if they don't look like mine," end quote. This is Annie Ganga, Renee Good's sister.
Well put.
No matter the adversity she faced, Renee always remained so tender and open and was a caretaker and protector. I'd like to acknowledge that this type of violence isn't new and how unfair it is that the way someone looks garners more or less attention. And I'm so sorry that this is the reality.
Meanwhile, Jim Stolley, the chief counsel for ICE in Minnesota, resigned from his position after 31 years on the job. This comes as government prosecutors are facing a surge of immigration cases that are overwhelming the court system. Last month, the top federal judge in Minnesota, Patrick Schiltz, criticized ICE for violating more than 100 judicial orders, saying, quote, "ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence."
And you know, this has been my point of when people are like, "Oh, well, we just need to write a strongly worded letter," or like, if we hold them accountable and just change the laws and make sure that they're not going to follow the laws. They don't follow the laws. They know that they don't have to because laws are just suggestions to them because they only report to Trump.
In more news from Minnesota, a Mexican immigrant whose skull was broken in 8 places during his arrest by ICE last month has described harrowing details of his ordeal. Alberto Castaneda Mondragon says he was violently pulled from a friend's car outside a St. Paul shopping center by 4 masked men, thrown to the ground, handcuffed, then punched and struck in the head by a steel baton. He says he was then dragged into an SUV and taken to an ICE jail inside the Whipple Federal Building, where he says he was beaten again. Castaneda Mondragon's injuries are inconsistent with ICE officers' claims to the nurses who treated him that he, quote, purposefully ran headfirst into a brick wall. In related news, more than 1,000 workers at Google have signed a petition calling on their company to cancel contracts with ICE and Customs and Border Protection. They write, quote, "Google is now a prominent node in a shameful lineage of private companies profiting from violent state repression. We must use this moment to come together as a Google community and demand an end to this disgraceful use of our labor," unquote. In Massachusetts,
Hey, Rainbow,
federal
how's it
judges
going?
put a temporary hold on data sharing between the IRS, Social Security Administration, and ICE. In a statement, the New York Immigration Coalition applauded the order, writing, quote, "With tax season here, this ruling ensures that immigrant families can meet their civic obligations without fear of retaliation or surveillance." President Trump is refusing to apologize
they want to put
for
everything in
publishing
one
a
database.
racist video that depicts former President Obama and Michelle Obama as apes. Trump's account on his social media platform, Truth Social, posted the video late Thursday night, where it remained for 12 hours
Disgusting.
before it was deleted around noon on Friday. It prompted rare criticism of the president from Republicans, including Tim
and if you're
Scott.
so fucking big and proud and fucking racist about it, like, why are you fucking deleting it, man? Like, I know he didn't apologize for it. He just said he's the least racist president. Yeah, why are you deleting it then? I mean, stand up for your shitty values, so everybody knows who you are.
The Senate's only black Republican. Scott said, quote, "It's the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House," unquote, adding that he was praying it was fake. But speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, Trump defended
For real though, he's
his
sitting on both
actions.
sides. Yeah.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans are calling on you to apologize for that post. Is that something you're going to do?
No, I didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things, I looked at the beginning of it. It was fine. They had that one post, and I guess it was a takeoff.
Quiet
By the
piggy.
way, a lot of people covered. If you look at where it came from, I guess it was a takeoff from The Lion King, and certainly it was a very strong post.
So hold on. So even though it was just like a 2-second clip of like the Obamas that was depicted them as racist, like the most racist depiction as hell, he knows exactly where the video came from. He knows exactly what it's about. Like, he knows all about it. It's not just, oh, I didn't know that wasn't in there. No, he's admitting that he knew it was in there. Yeah, he knows.
In terms of voter fraud.
The Justice
Yeah, he
Department
makes no
is set
sense
to
at all.
allow Congress
He's a
access
bad
to
liar, but he
unredacted
lies all the
files
time.
related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, starting today. Epstein's associate, the convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, is also set to testify before the House Oversight Committee in a virtual deposition closed to the public. Maxwell's lawyers have indicated that she will invoke the Fifth Amendment and decline to answer questions. Attorney General Pam Bondi is expected to testify on Wednesday over the Justice Department's handling of the Epstein files. It comes as Republican Congressmember Thomas Massie is pushing for Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to resign after email.
Thomas Massey's like, I'm gonna go look at the files. Tell me what you guys want to see. It's like, we want to see everything, bro. Like, why are you hogging the files? Like you can't just bring the whole thing out.
Lied when he claimed to have ended his relationship with Epstein in 2005. At the National Prayer Breakfast last week, President Trump called Congressmember Massey a moron. Meanwhile, in the UK, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, has resigned over his role in recommending the appointment of Peter Mendelsohn, a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, as ambassador to the United States. Israel's Security Cabinet has approved new rules to tighten Israeli control over the occupied West Bank. The rules will make it easier for Israeli settlers to buy land in the occupied West Bank and give Israeli officials stronger powers to enforce laws on Palestinians in the area.
Oh, they're buying the land. They're buying the land from them. That sounds great. Yeah, I'm sure they agreed to that, and they're getting, the best value for the land that they are giving up that has been in their family for generations. Yes.
Meanwhile, a new report by The Intercept has uncovered the Pentagon's $210 million deal to buy advanced cluster munitions from an Israeli weapons manufacturer. The U.S. will pay the Israeli company Tomer over a period of 3 years to produce new 155-millimeter shells containing smaller submunition.
That shit's been used on Hezbollah and it's been used on Palestinians.
The Cluster Munition Monitor has recorded nearly 25,000 cluster munition injuries and deaths since the 1960s, the vast majority from unexploded remnants.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Foreign-
is, not all of cluster munitions go off. There's always going to be some that are left over, and that's intentional. That's you could say that, oh, that's a failure of the product. Like, why didn't it work right away? Like, no, that's intentional. That's so, like, people get blown up later on.
The ministry says it's open to a deal to limit its ability to enrich uranium in exchange for relief from sanctions. But Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said any new agreement must include the right to enrich nuclear material for peaceful purposes. His comments came after U.S. and Iranian diplomats held indirect talks in Oman on Friday as U.S. warships gathered within striking distance of Iran amid Trump's threats of a new attack.
I really thought we would have been bombing around by now.
Iran's power lies in its ability to resist bullying, hegemony, and pressure from others. The U.S. and their allies are afraid of our atomic bomb, but we are not looking for an atomic bomb. Our key strength is the power to say no to the great powers.
In more news from Iran,
I saw another thing that was saying that the U.S. wants to do something similar to what we did with Venezuela. And basically use what's that sea that's nuke me please, the sea that's on the north side, north I think it's like northwest of Tehran. They want to use that as a jumping point. I think like Azerbaijan or somewhere over there.
Security forces have announced the arrest of 4 senior opposition politicians, including the head of the Reformist Front, widening a crackdown on dissent that's
But until it happens, we won't really.
Left thousands of people dead since protests erupted in late December. Those arrested face charges of plotting to overthrow Iran's Islamic regime. Separately, the jailed Nobel Peace Laureate Nargis Mohammadi has ended a hunger strike after an Iranian court on Saturday sentenced her to another 7 years in prison. She was on medical leave from prison in December when she was arrested at a memorial service for a well-known human rights lawyer who died under mysterious circumstances. Mohammadi has already spent over a decade behind bars.
Damn.
A Hong Kong court has sentenced media mogul Jimmy Lai to 20 years in prison. Lai had already been in detention for more than 5 years while serving a separate prison term on fraud charges. Lai was arrested back in 2020 under the national security law that China implemented in Hong Kong following the pro-democracy protests in 2019. He was the founder of the Hong Kong newspaper Apple Daily, which ceased operations in 2021 after police arrested the paper's employees and froze its assets. In Sudan, a drone attack by the paramilitary group RSF hit a vehicle carrying displaced families on Saturday, killing at least 24 people, including 8 children. The attack took place close to the city of Al-Rahad in North Kordofan province, according to the Sudan Doctors Network, a group tracking the country's civil war. The conflict in Sudan is the world's largest humanitarian crisis, with more than 40,000 people killed and more than 14 million people forced to flee their homes.
This is like the only place I see talking about that.
Unfrozen $16 billion in funds.
But then, we'll watch like, ABC World News or whatever, like like NBC, like World News Tonight or something like that. And they don't even talk about any of this stuff at all.
Withheld by President Trump for rail infrastructure between New York and New Jersey. Friday's court order came as President Trump reportedly told Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer that he would release the funds if Schumer supported renaming Dulles International Airport in Virginia and Penn Station in New York City after him. New Jersey's acting attorney general, Jennifer Davenport, issued a statement saying,
"What a psycho, man.
The Trump administration must drop this campaign of political retribution immediately and must allow work on this vital infrastructure project to continue." In Italy, thousands of people marched through the streets of Milan on Saturday to protest the environmental, social, and economic impacts of the Winter Olympics. They're also objecting to Israel's participation in the Games and the presence of immigration and customs enforcement agents with the U.S. delegation. Police fired tear gas and water cannons as some protesters approached a hockey venue. Inside the Games, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance was met with a chorus of boos when he appeared at the opening ceremony on Friday evening.
Shout out to Italy.
The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation covered the brief on-camera appearance by J.D. and
They're
Usha
cheering.
Vance.
Individual sport, what an honor for her.
There is the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and his wife, Usha.
Let's name a sewer after him and a dung heap. That would be nice. I saw somebody was trying to like argue that they weren't booing. I think it was some right winger. They were like, no, they're, you know, that's like when people are like when they, you know, they're like, ooh. Cope, yeah. They're saying boo earns.
Those are a lot of boos for him.
Those boos were not audible in video of Vance's appearance broadcast across the United States by NBC and then widely shared online, including by the White House's social media account. And Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny has made history as the first artist to perform a Super Bowl halftime show almost entirely in Spanish. Bad Bunny's performance came a week after he publicly criticized ICE at the Grammys during his victory speech for Album of the Year. During the halftime performance, Bad Bunny held a football that read, quote, "Together we are America." The performance ended with Bad Bunny holding a light blue pro-independence variation of the Puerto.
So yeah, they had the pro-independence variation of the Puerto Rican flag, which is light blue. If you look at the Puerto Rican flag, half of it, one side of it is like the current blue. And the other side is like the lighter blue.
Holding the flags of every country in the Americas.
God bless America. Sea Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Perú, Ecuador, Brasil, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Panamá, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras,
y Canadá.
Guatemala, México, Cuba, República Dominicana, Jamaica, Haití, Antillas, United States, Canadá, and my motherland, mi patria, Puerto Rico. Seguimos aquí.
President Trump called the performance absolutely terrible, one of the worst.
He said, "Seguimos aquí," like we're still here,
ever, and an affront to the greatness of America.
Which is a shout out to another song, in my opinion.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Nermeen Sheikh.
Thanks for watching.
Reminds me of a song by
Subscribe to the channel and
Residente.
turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for
all right, thanks, Amy. Yeah, also the Winter Olympics. Dude, Winter Olympics. Okay, just real quick. Lindsey Vonn airlifted off the mountains after crashing out hard and sustaining injuries. Meanwhile, Breezy Johnson's a real name, wins the gold in downhill.
Over to some sports news. U.S. skier Lindsey Vonn's Winter Olympic dream has ended in screams of pain. She has been airlifted to safety by a rescue helicopter for the second time in 9 days, following her defiant bid to win the Winter Olympic downhill, while the 41-year-old American star had been trying to claim the fourth Olympic medal of her career despite a rebuilt right knee.
She had blown out her ACL. She like blew it out, and she was still trying to ski. Like she was like, "Nah, I'm good. Like I'll go and try and finish it." Yeah, that's her. I saw an article that was like, what did they say? They said Tiger Woods' ex-girlfriend, and they didn't even put her fucking name in the title. They just said Tiger Woods' ex-girlfriend. This shit was crazy. I couldn't believe she came back. Like, I don't know why you came back. She just crashed. She crashed. I had to airlift her ass out of there. Like, dude, sit down.
And badly injured lefty knee. The 2010 Olympic
She's like 42.
hit the snow face first soon after pushing off from the start gate. She then rolled down the slope with her skis still attached, which is likely to have caused further serious damage to her knee.
Yeah,
Vaughn remained.
That's the other thing. You caused more damage to your knee.
Audible on camera. In the immediate moments after the crash, medical staff worked on her as the event was halted. Breezy Johnson, Vaughn's teammate, became only the second American woman to win the Olympic downhill after Vaughn did it 16 years ago. 30-year-old Johnson held off Emma Eicher of Germany and Italy's Sofia
16 years ago
on a bittersweet day for the team. Well, Johnson, who was already in the traditional leader's chair after her aggressive run down the slope, held her face in shock after Vaughn's crash, which completely changed the complexion of the race. Vaughn had family in the stands, including her father, who stared down at the ground while his daughter was being treated after just 13 seconds on the course, where she holds a record 12 World Cup
I mean, I'm
titles.
sure she's like, you know,
Vaughn
vitally,
came to the
physically
Olympics
okay.
as the
But
leader in the World
yeah, dude,
Cup
you're gonna
downhill standings and was a gold
like,
medal
you blow out your
favorite before
knees
a
like
crash
that. Like
in
you're not,
Switzerland
you're gonna
9
be
days
like
ago
walking in
when she
crutches
suffered
like the
her
older
latest
you
knee
get.
injury.
Like, I mean, that's what happens to a lot of athletes, right? They go hard on their body like that. Like you can't just do it forever. But yeah, sports. Here's the Bad Bunny intro.
Ey, Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias. Ey, muchas novias. Hoy tengo una, mañana
The
otra.
sugarcane field.
Pero no hay boda. Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias. Ey, muchas novias. Hoy tengo a una, mañana otra. Ey, me la voy a llevar a todas pa' un VIP. Un VIP. Ey, saludan a Titi. Vamos a tirar un selfie. Say cheese. Que sonrían y regalen la cara. En un VIP. Un VIP. Ey, saludan a
You know, I started to get like really thirsty when they showed the drinks. When they showed this, and I was like, oh, they're fake. Never mind.
Titi. Vamos a tirar un selfie. Say cheese. Que sonrían y regalen la cara. En un VIP. Un VIP. Ey, saludan a Titi. Vamos a tirar un selfie. Say cheese. Que sonrían las que se olvidaron.
Yeah, but you know, there's still a lot of agricultural land in Puerto Rico. Like, it's not like only a small parts of it are like built out, like and industrialized and whatnot, like you would expect like a U.S. city to be. Like San Juan is mostly like that, but you still see hints of you know what it used to be. With its like Spanish influence of, you know, the Latin Americas. Like there's a big difference between going to somewhere in the US versus like going to somewhere like in like Mexico or like, you know, South America, of what it looks like. And to me, Puerto Rico seemed like a blend of both. Like you could see where something stopped and something started. I went to Puerto Rico like 3 times for work a while back. It was very cool. Very, very, very awesome experience. But yeah, great to see them, you know, talking about the exploitation of you know, Latin America and the people. Sugarcane being one of the things that, you know, we were exploited for. All right, went to Puerto Rico.
Living right next to each
Somebody
other.
else went to Puerto Rico.
Where
All
do we
right.
find the worst income inequality in America? There
Speaking
are many
of-
communities where the haves and the have-nots are living right next to each other, from San Francisco to New York and all across rural America. But the starkest inequality is actually here in Puerto Rico, an island known for its beautiful beaches, its tropical weather, and also for a shocking 43% poverty rate. This poverty exists side by side with some of the most extreme wealth in the whole world. Since 2012, more than 5,000 crypto traders, real estate developers, and other wealthy Americans have moved to the island.
I'm moving to Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico is a place that's near and dear to my heart because it's where my family's from. It's where I lived as a kid and have some of my earliest memories. Yep.
Yeah, so they
that's me
posted
in the
this.
red and
This is
white
from
bikini.
2 years ago, but
So I wanted to find out, how did the
yeah.
gap between rich and poor on this beautiful island become so wide?
Income
What happens
inequality
when
is
the government
huge.
surrenders itself entirely to the 1%? To
and
answer
you
that
go
question,
there,
I'll talk
like when I went there, yeah, it's just rich invaders. That's what it is. It's colonization, modern day colonization, man. Like there's parts of the island that they have like solar panels so that they can have electricity or have reliable electricity. And you would think that it being part of the United States, it would be modernized, and we would actually give it money to be able to fulfill its like power, like the grid and everything, for it to be working well. But it's not. No, it's completely exploited. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes me
local
fucking
residents,
pissed. Yeah.
Investigative journalists, lawmakers, and activists who've been digging into this issue for years. This is the
And
classroom.
there's like
for more
casinos and
community.
shit. Like,
And today
it's just
we're
like
talking
pure
about
exploitation,
how
like
America's
everywhere.
elites are plundering Puerto Rico.
And,
Before we get
like,
to these guys,
it's
I'm moving to Puerto
exploitation,
Rico.
and it's a rich person's haven. A tropical paradise for them.
We decided to come to Puerto Rico.
I live in Puerto Rico, and I haven't been wearing closed-toed shoes since Thanksgiving.
we have to go back and
Must
give
be
you
nice.
a brief history.
But yeah, this is from like 2 years ago. Yeah, but more perfect union. 43% of Puerto Rico lives in poverty. Yeah. Oh yeah. Cuba's man. We're fucking Cuba over so bad. That shit's pissed me off. All right. Yeah. Bad Bunny listing off the countries in the Americas was powerful. If only the United States would stop invading them and start respecting the sovereignty of its neighbors. And here's Lady Gaga at the Super Bowl.
Para vivar, gracias, para vivar en la casa, en las escuelas, en el azul marcada. Tienes con vivir en las fortalezas. And gracias. Gracias.
I guess if that's the most Spanish yeah. And here's Laura Gooner, illegal aliens and Latin hookers twerking at the Super Bowl. Not a single white person or English translation at the Super Bowl. This isn't white enough for me. What? Can't even watch the Super Bowl anymore because immigrants have literally they're American. Puerto Ricans are Americans. Legally citizens of the United States. You don't even have to have a passport if you want to go back and forth. Like it's part of the U.S. Don't threaten me with a good time. Yeah. Oh yeah. Here's a C-SPAN.
Comment about the halftime show. The people who are complaining about it being in Spanish. The album that was a top winning award was all in Spanish. You wouldn't ask an opera singer, an Italian opera singer, to convert her song into English.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. In the 50s, blacks would go overseas. Blues singers, jazz singers. They sang in Paris and France. They sang in English. This whole thing about the Spanish is just a made-up controversy, and it's unfortunate.
It's culture war.
Important thing
it's another culture war issue. Like to somebody that doesn't really think about it, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, why are they singing in Spanish?" And it's like that is such a culture war issue, and they fucking sucked your ass in, dude.
Said at the end, within English, God bless America. We have to stop being so discriminatory toward anything that's not like us all the time. It was a great performance. It was
all these callers that have been calling into C-SPAN. They're like woke 2.0 over here.
All love. You did not need to be able to speak English to understand it. Thank you. I wanted to make a
based. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, the Toilet Paper USA halftime show. If you missed it, this is what it was.
Yo, is the chat frozen? I don't get it. Live chat. It's not loading yet.
I just want to catch my fish, drive my truck, drink my beer.
Just want to kiss my fish.
Not wake up to all this
hello?
Stuff I don't want to hear.
Hello?
Kind of gun I hunt with.
But yeah, I checked in on it. I checked in on the the halftime show, the Toilet Paper USA show, and like the Quebec. It went from like 1.5 million views to to go to like 4.5 million views, and I was like, this seems like it's botted. Like they botted their own live stream. Don't you ever want to kiss your fish in your truck? But they literally botted their own live stream. Like it's crazy. But here's Kid Rock performing a 30-year-old like nu metal song. There's like 20 people there. Bawa da ba, the bang dang, the dang dang. I don't think it's English. That's not English either. Wearing jorts. I guess he had to go full 90s, right? He's gonna blow out his ACL jumping around like that, man. They got like 40 people there. He's lip syncing. Did you see the microphone? Like he was talking while not holding the microphone up to his mouth. Imagine lip singing to like 30 people. You can't even lip sing. Yeah. I saw the I've had it was on was Teo. Very woke, very I at first I couldn't believe that I've had it was so popular. But like now that I've seen them go on with Hassan's been on their show. They're talking to Mehdi over here. They've talked. They're really like coming into fruition. And like for a lot of people that are like liberal wine moms that didn't want to get involved into Israel and all this other stuff, or didn't know whether they have an opinion on it. Talking about ICE and talking shit about like even the Democratic Party. Like they do it. And I'm amazed. I'm surprised that they actually do that. But this was a really good clip here.
Concern for the Palestinians in this issue come from?
Okay, so when you live in Oklahoma, it's very white, at least where I live. There is a black part of town. It's still very segregated. You don't really know what's going on in the Middle East. And I don't mean for this to sound dismissive, but you don't care either. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny Jewish community. There's no Muslims at all. Zero Muslim population. So I fell prey to probably some ambient Islamophobia, also having a default setting of not liking religion. So when it was told to me,
and that's really like just every American, like every American is that way. Like if they don't if it's not really talked about, then you're like, oh yeah, whatever the default setting is, for my Amer brain. I guess, yeah, Muslims bad or something. They're weird. They do weird stuff like that. That's what you get taught, through media and everything. And especially like the news and the way things are reported, because we live in such a just like a right wing, environment. I guess right wing society by default. Our liberalism skews to the right heavily.
That Israel's a democracy and they're our ally. I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. We need to fight for
same with communism, yeah. And communism is demonized. Right. Exactly, communism is demonized. Like a lot of things that we get told that it's bad because we shouldn't be looking into it, and it's also weird. And those people are different, so they don't speak English like us.
It's I was fighting more immediate civil rights in these horrible red states. And so when we went to the DNC, which was so cool for us to get invited to the DNC.
And also she's right. Like, a lot of people are just about local issues. Like they just want to talk about, what's going on in my city, what's going on in my state. Oh, you live in a red state? Well, you must be a shitty person. Like, that's the way that, that's the attitude for a lot of Americans.
DNC, we went every day. And I was so focused on helping Kamala get elected. I would walk in and there were all these peaceful protesters, Palestine. I would walk out. And I'm a little bit ashamed to admit this to you, but I think atonement and purging is a therapeutic thing. I was irritated by them. I thought they are going to this up for us.
The uncommitted movement.
Yes.
And the Palestinian protests.
And why aren't they doing this at, the RNC and blah, blah. But
we've heard that argument before, like from people that are liberals on social media. They're like, oh yeah, well, you're talking shit about Kamala. You're talking shit about Joe Biden. Why don't you go talk shit about Trump? Huh? He's going to be much worse. It's like, we already know that. There's no point in talking shit to those guys because they're not going to listen at all. At least here, there's maybe some hope that they might actually listen and change their stance.
thought everybody's going to pull together and vote for Kamala. There's no way he can win. Well, after she lost, I was like, your mother taught you to be curious. You need to dive into this thing. My husband always said, I don't know what's going on in Israel and Palestine, but I just know every fucking politician I hate supports Israel. Ted Cruz. That's the way, he's a criminal defense lawyer.
That's actually a pretty good way of judging an issue.
Lindsey Graham. He goes, I just know that
do you want to be on the same
every
side
politician you hate supports
so that was
Israel.
His take on it. So I really started researching about it. Like, how did Israel become a country? I didn't fucking know. I didn't care. And I know that's terrible to say, but when you live in a red state, you're so focused on domestic politics.
As critical as I'm of red states, this is not a red state issue. This is an America-wide issue. There are people in blue states who have no clue about what's happening in Palestine. Let's be clear about that.
So I started reading all about it. And then when you see what happens, I have some friends in one girl that I play with, tennis with in Oklahoma City. And she is Palestinian. And I said to her one day after a tennis match, I said, hey, Ines, where are you from? She goes, oh, I'm from Palestine originally. And I just put my hand on her shoulder. And I said, I'm so sorry for what's happening to your country. And she started crying. And she said, you're the only person in this entire state that has acknowledged what's happening to my homeland. She goes, and I never cry. And so I thought, this is pretty up. So I read about it. And it's a genocide. It just is. And you either believe in universal human rights or you don't.
Exactly. And it still doesn't make any sense to me how people that claim to be, radical leftist scum or, people that claim to be leftists without actually, looking into Marx or communism or anything like that, can say, I support Israel. Like how can you say that when Israel is at its most right-wing government that it has ever been in? It doesn't make any sense. And if you were to look into the history of Israel, if you were to look into the Israel politics or just their policies that they have, you would realize that that's an apartheid state. They practice segregation in real time today. In the U.S. we knew it as segregation. The same racism that goes on here is the same type of racism that's going on there, and they just do it. They do it on a military scale right now. But yeah, here's Democracy Now!
This is Democracy Now!
And this is a prime example of that, right? Like, if it wasn't apartheid, Gaza wouldn't be walled off, and then aid wouldn't be restricted from going in. Same thing that happens in the West Bank, where they have checkpoints for everybody. It takes you hours and hours just to get down one road, and then everybody's walled off, segregated by walls.
.org. I'm Nermeen Sheikh with Amy Goodman. We end today's show in Gaza, where the partial reopening of the southern Rafah crossing with Egypt has been marred by chaos as Israel enforces strict restrictions on Palestinians. Over the first 4 days...
Also, Gaza is not part of Israel. It is occupied territory. They should not be in charge of this crossing. They shouldn't be in charge of any border crossings.
Of the crossings reopening, only 36 Palestinians in need of medical treatment were allowed to leave for Egypt, according to UN data. This comes amidst rising skepticism over the implementation of the second phase of the so-called ceasefire brokered by the Trump administration, which Israel has repeatedly violated with near daily attacks across Gaza.
For more, we're joined by Arwa Damon, award-winning journalist, former CNN correspondent. She's the founder of Inara, a nonprofit organization that supports children impacted from war, joining us from Istanbul, Turkey. If you can tell us what's happening. We hear that the Rafah border is partially open. We hear about the enormous medical need of children and others getting out of Gaza for treatment. And also, who's coming in? Can you talk about the workers for Inara, your organization, Arwa?
Look, first of all, no one inside Gaza is calling this a ceasefire, not even the children.
Yeah,
we support a number of makeshift educational tents. And the kids, and in this case, it was a group of girls, seventh graders. They were talking to our team about how difficult it was just to get to the tent, how, it shuts down when the rains are too intense because the tent floods. They don't have anything to really sit on, so they're on the cold ground. And it's really a struggle for them. And so our program coordinator, Yusta, was asking them, why do you bother to come to school? And they said, because when the war is over, that's when we will make our dreams come true. And this launched a conversation about what their perspective was right now. And they were talking about how for them, the war hasn't ended and that they still go around every single day with that fear that they could be bombed, that they're still struggling to get sufficient, nutrition. And so when we talk about
there's people being bombed every single day.
Partially reopening, in theory, we were supposed to be seeing 50 patients off of a medical evacuation list that is close to 20,000 being permitted to leave every single day, along with 2 relatives. What we saw in total, as you just mentioned there, for the entirety of the first week was just 37 patients leaving. Even if we were to take that number, and no one's really sure how that was exactly agreed upon, of 50, it would still take over a year to get everybody out. And we have to keep in mind that, these aren't people that are just...
So it's 50 patients, 50 people can exit Gaza. And then they can bring family with them, like I think 2 family members, so a total of 150 a day. And then, so that's out, right? So to let people in, though, they're only going to allow 50 people to come in, if they're even allowed to come in. The numbers are it's at a losing rate of people, and that's what they want. They want to empty Gaza one way or another. They want to empty it out, and this is another effort to do that.
Signing up to a list to be able to leave Gaza. These are people, children, people of all ages who have such debilitating injury that if they don't get treatment outside of the Gaza Strip, because Gaza's hospital system has been entirely decimated, they are either going to end up with permanent injury or they are going to die. In a period of just roughly 7 months last year, more than 1,000 people died while they were waiting for medical evacuation. Now, when it comes to who's being allowed in, there is a list also of roughly 25 to 30,000 people who signed up to be permitted to go back in. The numbers being let in, as far as we are aware, are even less than those that are being let out. And you hear testimony from some of them where they're talking about how they weren't permitted to bring their belongings in with them, how they were very aggressively interrogated, how they were blindfolded to be able to move through certain parts that, presumably maybe Israel considers to be sensitive. Now, specifically when it comes to our team is all actually based in Gaza and from Gaza. We and I myself, I've been denied entry by Israel for over a year right now, something that we're trying to appeal through the Israeli courts process. But for all organizations, it's becoming more and more difficult to operate because of these new regulations and restrictions that Israel has put into place.
Arwa, in addition to this, catastrophic medical situation, there's also an increasing problem with the sewage system in Gaza. If you could explain what the sanitation system is like and the problems that it's producing.
I mean, look, we need to think about, the 2.5+ years of this Israeli bombardment of the Gaza Strip that has utterly decimated almost all of Gaza's infrastructure. And that includes sewage infrastructure. And so all of these people who were displaced had to basically dig toilets. And when it rains, these holes overflow. And so when it rains in Gaza, when we see those images of flooding, that's not just rainwater.
That's
that
awful.
is sewage water. And it carries with it, obviously, any number of diseases. Now, couple that with the fact that access to water to be able to bathe with, access to hygiene kits, soap, is also very challenging and heavily restricted. There's no way to mitigate against the spread of disease. Now, add to that the fact that there's not sufficient medication to be able to deal with some of these diseases that are emerging. And while I'm on the topic of medication, because we do talk a lot about the impact on children, it's also worth talking about the impact on the elderly who have heart conditions or diabetes. they are quite often unable to access the medications that they need. And I was talking to another friend of mine whose father is with her, who is quite ill, and she doesn't know what she's going to do if, he has a crisis at any point of time in the day, because again, it's Gaza. You can't just walk out and hail a cab and get to a functioning hospital. And so when you do talk to people inside, they really don't feel as if, one, it's a ceasefire, two, that anything is really genuinely improved on the ground, or that anything has happened that is allowing them that just brief second of respite.
Arwa, we have less than a minute. What do you think the intention here is of the Trump administration, as his envoys, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, say they're negotiating into a second phase? What do you think? Where does that leave Palestinians?
I think it would take someone with magical powers to try to predict what President Trump and what this administration's intentions, thoughts, and sort of, psychology and logic actually is. But if we look at what has happened so far, it most certainly does not seem as if any of the plans that are being spoken about or suggested actually have the Palestinian population of Gaza's best interests at heart. And that is a terrifying prospect. People still expect to be forcibly displaced once again. People are terrified that they might eventually be pushed out of Gaza altogether.
Arwa Damon, I want to thank you for being with us. Award-winning journalist, former CNN correspondent, founder of Inara, a nonprofit organization that supports children impacted by war. She has been banned from going back to Gaza. I want to encourage people to come out to our February 23rd Democracy Now! 30th anniversary celebration at the historic Riverside Church in New York. Guests will include Angela Davis and Naomi Klein, the Nobel Prize laureate Maria Ressa, Michael Stipe, the jazz legend Wynton Marsalis, the Palestinian poet Masaba Butoha. Hooray for the riff raff.
What? Are you in there? You know what? Yeah, Nuevo York. Very cool. I wish that was coming. I wish that was coming to me. All right. A little bit more on Israel, actually. True Vanguard, who is a gamer, who makes he makes videos for video games. Like he does tips and tricks videos of how to play new characters and stuff. He's also heavily religious, or at least grew up very religious. But yeah, he's been getting more into politics, and I wanted to hear his piece here. This is a 22-minute long video, but he starts off with, "No, Christians do not have a religious obligation to support Israel." Check out the full video for a history lesson. Here's the highlights. I'm just going to go ahead and play it. Amen. But yeah, a lot of people get told that, if you're a Christian, if you're a good Christian, then you have to support Israel because, everybody wants to go to heaven, and all this convoluted stuff that has been twisted around and misinterpreted, so that people by default support Israel. But yeah, here.
If you are a Christian, you have no religious obligation to support the modern day government of Israel. That is the point of this video. So, hi, my name is Ryan.
This is what a lot of people need to hear.
I then went on to study at Wesley Seminary after that. I had an emphasis on biblical languages, Greek and Hebrew, for the primary goal of being able to study the original text in the original language. So today, the goal of the video is not to tell you what you are or are not allowed to believe regarding Israel and whether or not you want to support them or condemn their actions. My goal is to simply rebut the myth that Christians have an obligation to support the current government of Israel that is somehow religious and tied to the scriptures, tied to the text. That is a downright lie. Now, you may have heard recent politicians and right-wing influencers say things like this.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed.
You notice he says, I was taught. Yeah,
And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two, Israel,
is the nation
they're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes,
it is. Okay.
Never mind the fact that just before Senator Cruz said that, he received about $350,000 in personal donations from Israeli lobbyist groups. That may or may not be connected to his opinion. But I really want to take some time dismantling this myth that we have to support Israel if we are Christians. And it all comes back to this promise that God made to a man named Abram in the Old Testament in the book of Genesis, very first book in the Bible. So this comes from Genesis chapter 12.
We're doing some Bible
God
study
says
today.
to Abram at the time, this is the man who would be called Abraham, I think 20 years later. But he says to him in verse 3 of chapter 12, he says, I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. And in you, all families of the earth will be blessed. That is an important part that they leave out. And
I love this
through
nerdy
you,
shit.
all
No, that's
families
good.
of the earth will be blessed. They will receive the blessing. And we'll
And
get there.
There's a lot of people that have been heavily indoctrinated with religion and, have gone to Bible study and Sunday school and all this other stuff. Like a lot more than what these politicians expect somebody to have experience with, right? And for those people, they can easily just debunk all of the shit that they're trying to push. But for the rest of us that are like, oh, well, yeah, I only got taught that Israel good, Muslim bad.
But this is interesting because the very first thing I want to call attention to is that this is a promise that is given not to a country. It is not given to a kingdom. It's not about borders and governments. It's a man. It's a promise given to a man and his family. And that's very important. That's a common
It's iconic when they come up with facts like this, yeah.
This video. But it's pretty clear up front that God is making a promise to a people that are set aside to following him and his way. And that's what the promise is really directed to. So the name Israel would not show up for another century and a half. It's 150 years later-ish, when a descendant of Abraham's by the name of Jacob will have an encounter with God where God will change his name from Jacob to Israel. So Jacob will then give birth to many sons. These become the 12 tribes of Israel, one of them being Joseph. Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, that Joseph. He will end up in Egypt. His other brothers will eventually come and join him in Egypt, and that's where the Israelite people will be and end up in Egyptian captivity. Initially, they were there under the blessing of the Pharaoh, but then the following Pharaoh would abandon that blessing and then sort of subjugate the people. That's where we have the book of Exodus. So we now have God's promise to this family. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, is going to be reflected in the way that God interacts with the Egyptian people. So this is where we get all of the plagues, because they are oppressing the people, the tribes, the family of the Israelites. It's not about a government or a kingdom or anything like that. It's just a family of people. It's a group of people that descended from those 12 tribes.
You're telling me God didn't create the government of Israel
we have
right
the
now?
Exodus. They make their way back to the land of Canaan, and that is where they will then reside. But here's where we start to see this promise kind of unravel a bit, because the Israelite people then are back in Israel eventually after their 40 years of wandering. They're back in Israel, and they want to be a kingdom. They're looking around at the other people groups around them, and they say, we want to be like that. Okay, we need a king, borders, a government. That's what we need. And God says, no, you don't. I am your king. All right, I have made a promise to you. You're my people, right? You don't need a man to follow. You have me. And they are insistent. They say, no. We need a king. And God's trying to make it abundantly clear. He's like, look, that's not the structure that we're going with. We don't need kings and borders and governments. You're just my people. It's about following me. And he makes it abundantly clear. And he says, finally, he gives in. He says, all right, you want kings? We'll do kings, but it's not going to go well for you. And he's absolutely right, because Israel then would adopt a king structure, and they will only last 3 kings before the nation is split. So you've got King Saul. He ended up being terrible. Then following him was King David, who was far from perfect, but he was regarded as being a good king, especially eventually. He was succeeded by his son Solomon, who was tasked with building the temple in Jerusalem and was very highly loved and well regarded by the people. But then his son Rehoboam would then be set up to take the throne after he dies. And the people said to Rehoboam, they said, listen, we loved your dad. He was awesome, but we're kind of tired because it was really all hands on deck to build that temple. That was like Solomon's life achievement, was building the temple. And it was all hands on deck. All the people pitched in to make that happen. And they said to Rehoboam, like, we're so glad we did it, but we need a break. And Rehoboam said, I want to be the kind of king that is feared and respected for his strength. And I want to exude power over the people. So he said, no, I'm going to double your workload and increase your taxes. And almost all of the people say, peace, we are out of here. So you've got 10 tribes that then say, then we're done. We're leaving. And they move north and establish a new Israel. The 2 tribes that remained, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, decided to take on the name of Judah. So you've got the northern kingdom of Israel, the southern kingdom of just 2 tribes by the name of Judah. Now, my question for you, who has the blessing? Is it the majority of people? Like most of the Israelites move north and continue to operate under the name of Israel. Do they have the promise? Or is it the 2 tribes that stayed in the southern kingdom of Judah and they have the temple and Jerusalem? Do they have the promise? Who's God's people right now? Because now we got 2 different kingdoms. Where did the promise go? Or is it a trick question?
Where did the
because
promise
God
go?
made it abundantly clear it's not about kings, rulers, governments, and borders. That's not what the promise was ever about. It was about a people dedicated to following Yahweh. I would argue that is where the promise is. It's with the people who are still truly and earnestly following God's way. Now, if the promise was about kingdoms, then you would imagine that you would see these kingdoms be well established and last forever. That is not the case. So God actually in the scriptures gives them up. He says, okay, if you're not going to follow me, then I don't need to actively honor that promise. I will go with you in your suffering. Don't get me wrong. I will still be with you, but I will also give you up. If you choose, you don't want to be a part of me, you don't want to follow me, that's your choice. So he gives them over to the Assyrians and the Babylonians. So in 722 BC, the Assyrians come in and they sack that northern kingdom. And they don't get like cursed. It's not like Egypt, right? Where they just, God is then in opposition to the Assyrians. It doesn't happen like that. He gives them over to the Assyrians. They come in, and every kingdom, or every other like nation that would come in and conquer the Israelites had a different strategy, right? Everybody's got a different strategy on how to maintain power once you take a people, once you conquer a people. How do you keep them in line? We see a lot of different strategies, like Hellenism from Alexander the Great, which we'll get to later. But everybody's got their own strategy. With the Assyrians, their goal is really they do forced deportation, and then they infuse your land with a bunch of their guys and force you into marriage. It's a polite way of saying assault your women and make them have children of mixed blood. So it's no longer the people being born in the northern kingdom of Israel. They're no longer pure blood Israelites anymore, right? It's mixed bloodlines. And this is a really effective strategy. You think about, like, for me, for example, if I go onto like Ancestry.com, I can trace back my lineage to a couple of different European countries, most of which I have never been to and don't feel a strong connection to, even though I'm only a few generations removed from them. And that's the idea the Assyrians are trying to that's what they're enforcing. They know that you will quickly lose your attachment to your heritage, your ancestry, in just a few generations of being mixed blood. And so that's their way of sort of keeping you in line. This is where we get the Samaritans in the New Testament, right? And the pure-blooded Israelites are like, no, those people are gross, they're taboo, they're icky. Those icky Samaritans, they are mixed blood. And so it even makes your own true-blooded people dislike you and not accept you, so you get even further alienated from your heritage. Now, the southern kingdom of Judah God would also give them over, and this is the way that the biblical authors in the Old Testament talk about this in 2 Kings, is that God just gives them over to the Babylonians. Says, okay, you're not going to follow me, then that's fine. Like, that's your choice. Then this is how things are going to go. The Babylonians come in, and God's not going to protect them from the Babylonians. Instead, King Nebuchadnezzar comes in, sacks the city of Jerusalem. Their tactics are different. They're going to take your most elite people, and they're going to march them back to Babylon, where they will integrate you into their culture. Sort of cultural overriding to assimilate you into their systems. And so who's got the promise now? Is it the half Israelite people now in the land of the northern kingdom of Israel who were conquered by the Assyrians, or the ones that were marched back to Assyria as slaves? Who's got the promise? Or is it the people in Babylon? Is it the two kingdoms, or the two tribes that were captured by Babylon and marched back to Babylon? Do they have the promise? Who's got the promise now? Let me fast forward and give you a quick summary of what happens in this intertestamental period, because the Old Testament leaves off with Persian rule. So we've got Babylon. Eventually they are conquered by the Persians. The Persians come in and they say to the Israelites, eventually they say, listen, if you guys just want to go home, that's fine. Like, we don't harbor any animosity towards you. We know you were conquered by the Babylonians. We came in and we conquered them. But if you just want to go home, that's fine by us. Just pay your taxes to us. That's fine. But go home, rebuild your temple, rebuild your city of Jerusalem. So they do. So they come back into Jerusalem and into the land of their ancestors, but they never get to fully establish a kingdom because they're under Persian rule. After the Persians, the Greeks come through, Alexander the Great, and he conquers that whole region. He brings with him this idea of Hellenism, which is, I'm going to give you guys education and healthcare and entertainment, and you're going to be begging for me to come conquer your city, because the life that I give you is going to be so much better than what you've got. We got aqueducts, we got running water, and you want to keep pooping in your field and burying it with a shovel, that's fine, but we do things differently. You're gonna be begging me to come conquer you guys. He brings Hellenism. After the Greeks, Alexander the Great dies. His generals are fighting for territory that kind of weakens their rule, and then Rome comes in, and the Roman Empire takes over. During all of that time, the Israelite people are already starting to scatter. This is a phenomenon that we refer to as diaspora, where the people are scattered across the globe. So it's not even that, like, the true descendants of the 12 tribes are even still located in the land of modern-day Israel. Largely, they aren't. In fact, current day, the overwhelming majority of true descendants are scattered across the globe and are not in modern day Israel. So to say that government that's over there has the promise, they have the promise, they have the blessing, is kind of silly. But anyways, eventually Jesus comes. Jesus is born.
Oh, Jesus, that guy. I know that guy.
He grows up to a young adult. He begins his ministry in his 30s, and Jesus is heralding the kingdom of God. And this is kind of like what God was saying back in the Old Testament. He's like, you don't need an actual man king. You don't need it. That's not what this promise is about. It's about my kingdom. You just need me. You don't need a king, a government, or borders. You just need me. It's about following me. And Jesus starts to expand the promise. He says things like, I have sheep who are not in this pen, and I need to make myself accessible to them too. In the book of John, he's saying this isn't just about Jews, which is what they started to call the people who were in the land of Judah, the Judeans, the Jews. He broke barriers by healing Roman centurions and Samaritans. He's starting to tear down the border barriers. It's not about a government. It's not about borders. It's not about a country. Not about a nation.
This Jesus guy, he had open borders like Biden, I guess, huh?
It's about the kingdom of God being accessible to all people through faith. And that's how they gain access into that kingdom, which transcends borders and walls and governments, right? Paul will then pick up on this, and he will make it abundantly clear. And this is probably the most important, if you've spaced out, this is probably the most important
Jesus
thing to
was
latch
woke
onto right now. Paul makes it very clear, crystal clear terms. He says that the promise to God's people now extends to anybody. Anybody across the globe, from border to border, nation to nation, east to west. Doesn't matter where on the planet you are. So Paul is going to say in perfectly clear words, the promise is to all people across the whole globe. This is what he says in Galatians chapter 3. This is verses 27 through 29. He says, "For all you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourself in Christ. There's no Jew or Gentile. There's no slave nor free. There's no male nor female, for you are all one in Christ. And if you belong to Christ, then, listen, then you are Abraham's descendants, heirs, according to the promise." Let me say that again. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's descendants. Who got the promise? Who was the man who received the promise? Where does it go back to? Abraham. It's where we started this video. You are heirs of Abraham according to the promise. What promise? The promise that was given to Abraham. There's no Jew nor Gentile. In other words, there's no ethnic hierarchies anymore, right? It's all people. It's not slave or free. It doesn't matter if you're a rich man, an affluent man, or if you're on the bottom of the totem pole in terms of the economic status. You could be the slaves. You still have access to the promise. There's no longer any male nor female. Your gender does not disqualify you from receiving the promise.
Hey, this Jesus guy is gonna ruin capitalism.
There are no variables that disqualify you from the promise. Everybody gets the promise. It's for all people. I get the promise. You get the promise. We're all recipients of the promise. So when we ask the question, where's the promise? Who has the promise? It is not the government of Israel. Modern day Israel, that government has only existed since the late 1940s. Not even 100 years. That promise was made to a man thousands of years ago. It was not given to the modern day government of a place called Israel. And most true Israelites weren't even there. They were all across the world at that point. But yeah, Paul makes it clear. The promise is given to all people through faith in Christ. That's it. That's the only prerequisite to having access to the promise. So when people say, as a Christian, you have to support the modern day government of Israel, you can remind them that the promise was never about governments. It was never about kingdoms or men or borders. It was always about a people committed to following God. That's you, that's me, that's anybody else across this whole planet who chooses to follow Jesus's way. So don't let anybody try to dog walk you into support of Israel simply because you have a religious obligation to do so. You have no religious obligation to do so at all. Now, you can rationalize, if you want, a reason to support them. But don't just blindly follow modern day Israel's lead simply because you think as a Christian you must. There is no such requirement, not biblically. And anybody who argues that there is a biblical reason is not reading the Bible, because there is no question mark in here.
I think that's what they rely on, though. They rely on people not to be literate, not to be well educated.
In plain language. In fact, everybody who ever tried to force kingship onto Jesus, he rebuked him. He was like, that is not my goal. That's not my job. Okay, you have me all wrong. In fact, there's this moment when Peter says to Jesus says, who do you say that I am? And he says, you're the Messiah. And Jesus says, don't be telling people that. He says, shh, keep it quiet. We call this the messianic secret in the New Testament, the messianic secret. Sometimes Jesus shushes people when they're like, you're the Messiah. He goes, would you can it? Would you keep that to yourself? Do not be telling people that crap. The reason is because their idea of a Messiah means anointed king, they think he's there to kick Rome out and be set up on the throne of Israel and, in Jerusalem as their new king. And he's like, that is not what I'm here for. So do not be telling people that. Okay. Jesus basically says, if you have your idea of me wrong, you can be a close disciple of mine. You can be a follower of mine. But sometimes I want you to shut your mouth because you misunderstand me and my mission. It's better for me if you just shut up. Don't go out there and preach my name, even though you're a follower of mine. If you have the wrong message, you'll do more damage than you will do good. So make sure that you understand me and my message before you go telling people that stuff. There are times in the New Testament where Jesus is like, yes, go out there and tell them what I did for you. Usually it's when he heals somebody in the region that is not overly Jewish, because he knows these people are just going to go tell others, Jesus healed me of my afflictions. Jesus said I'm welcome. Jesus says he accepts me. But the Jewish audience, he tells them, shh. Why? Because they have the wrong understanding about his job, his mission at that point. Eventually, he gives them the Great Commission after his resurrection, where he says to his disciples, yeah, go out and make disciples of all nations. All nations. You're picking up on the trend here. That's because at that point, they finally get it. They finally understand who he is. Before, it was, don't tell anybody. Shut your mouth. Because you think I'm a worldly king, setting up a government. That is not what I'm doing. That's not my mission. That's not what I'm about. Once they understand him, yeah, go out there. Tell everybody. I hope this has been helpful. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I think it's really fascinating. And I think that seeing the whole narrative of Scripture in its totality really does help us to understand the narrative better, where we came from, where we're going. A lot of times I think that it's such an easy trap for people to fall into today, where they will have an idea that they are already committed to, and so they will go to the Scriptures and they will try to find a sentence in this whole book that just somehow seems to validate the opinion they already have. Let this speak for itself. Read it in its totality. Study it. That's when it comes alive. That's when it's able to teach us meaningful things about God and about his mission. But when we just go cherry picking verses and we rip them out of the narrative and say, aha, that's not Bible study. That's reckless. And that's when Jesus is going to tell us, shh, can it? Don't be telling people that crap. That is not the totality of my desires, my mission, my goal. Once you understand me, then go out there and tell the people. But just cherry picking stuff out and be like, I told you. That ain't right. Shh. Thanks for watching. If you got to the end, then let me know in the comments. Be like, yeah, I watched the whole thing. That was interesting. Or, yeah, I watched the whole thing and you're an idiot. That's fine too. I just appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully you feel better equipped to talk about this particular subject, since it just keeps coming up lately. And every time I see it, I'm like, guys, come on. That's not what we're supposed to do. And anyways, polite reminder, I do talk about these things on my other YouTube channel called Faith and Politics. So feel free to check that out too. I
didn't know he had a YouTube channel
for
that specifically.
If you are a Christian, you have no...
Yeah, let me click on that here. Very nice. Yeah, it looks like this is from a while ago. Well, these previous videos. But yeah, this one he just dropped recently. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree that it seems like a lot of what modern Israel does today, they use to hide. They use the image of Israel and like the Bible and like the whole religious thing just to hide behind it, so that, we can do some more imperialism. So we can spread, the idea that the West is what's right, and everything that Israel does is correct. Whether it's killing people, annexing land, or just, influencing politics in different parts of the world, like, for example, like AIPAC in the United States. Where all of our politicians have to report to have an AIPAC handler. None of that stuff is in any scripture that he's talking about. Point to me where it said like Jesus was like, yes, AIPAC must run the United States. Like the United States didn't even exist. Like Israel itself as a country did not exist. Like the modern day Israel is not what is being taught in any of these scriptures. It's just something that was made up less than 100 years ago. I think once people come to that realization, then it makes a lot of sense, especially if you look at it from the lens of the United States came in after the UK helped create the Israeli government in Palestine, and then start taking it over. And then, once the UK was struggling, like financially and kind of spreading themselves thin, the United States came in and took over that. So we took over the project. That's what modern Israel is now, right? It's been since like the 60s, 70s, when that happened. And since then, the other thing you'll notice is like Christians in the United States, evangelicals, they really got behind the idea that, you know, Israel is, it must be supported by the United States. That, you know, everybody, if you are pro-America, then you're pro-Israel. So you have to be that way. But it wasn't always our project. It wasn't always something that was supported by the U.S. Like, we've given them what, $300 billion since the inception, 300 billion plus, right? And that's all money that could be going to the people here in the U.S. But instead, we send that money over there, and you have to ask yourself, why are we so heavily invested in Israel? And it is because it is a footprint for the military to establish itself in that region. And why do you want to establish yourself in that region? Because of fucking oil resources. We use people from all around the world. To maintain that country. And then we use the people the people's taxes from the United States to also maintain that country. So there's this huge thing of exploitation going on, right? Where we exploit other countries in the United States. We pay them, you know, pennies on the dollar from what we would pay people if they worked here in the United States. We import their stuff. We sell it to the people here in the U.S., or we sell it, you know, export it, sell it to whoever, so that we rake in all the profits. All that money gets put into this economy. People from the United States end up paying taxes. Those taxes get pay for the country of Israel, and that it's just a small layer of how the military industrial complex works, because one of our main exports in the US is weapons of war, bombs, like airplanes, like fighter jets, all of it. And we're using this whole facade of religion and, you know, God's people and God's chosen people and all this other stuff. You can't say anything bad about them. Like, you cannot say anything bad. But we use that, and we use them, and we use people to enlist into the IDF. People that enlist in the IDF are not just from Israel; they're from around the world. They're from different parts of the world, and they go and they enlist because they think it's right. Right? They do these like what are they called? Forgot what the thing is, where they take students from like high school that are about to graduate, and they take them over to Israel. Whatever that thing's called, I forgot what it is. But yeah, like, you know, it's just all propaganda. It's all so that the West, the UK, the United States, every country that's interested in having a foothold in the Middle East can just run amok there, bomb whoever we want, whenever we want. We've shown that with bombing Iran this year. We've showed that with the destruction of Gaza. You know, the repeated destruction of those countries and those regions that have resisted, and for what? For the exploitation of everyone, around the world, the exploitation of those people that are there, and just you know, an excuse to do mass murder. That's what it's come down to, and you know, people will still argue about. Well, we have to support Israel because, you know, if you're a good Christian, then you support them, or if you're a good American, then you support them. Like, there's all these things like, oh, if you're a good person, like you do, if you're a good person, you're gonna want to follow that country that's doing genocide, that's been doing genocide, that was founded on genocide. Like, make it make sense, because that is not at all what it is, because what he's talking about with scriptures and all this stuff and historical context, it's just a small layer. It's a small layer of the grandscape of everything. But yeah, I knew that this was going to get into that. But you know, just putting it all together, you really see, like, once you have everything together, and you see that, oh, this is just the West. It's a Western. They've called it, you know, the unsinkable aircraft carrier because of how many jets we've given to Israel. Israel is literally an unsinkable aircraft carrier with an unlimited amount of bodies that you can pump into it, because so many people come from different parts of the world to move there. Once you see it as that, you're like, wow, this is literally just imperialism. Like, this is fucked up. This is just war. This is just, you know, a way for the United States military to have a giant military base, and really not just the United States military, but anybody that wants to, you know, take part in it, to have a huge base in a part of the world that we're foreign to, so that we can have a stranglehold on resources. But you know, if you look at it that way, it doesn't look good. So what if we just put the religious mask on it, and then, you know, now you give some people, you kind of sway some people from talking bad about it. So that's really what it all encompasses. All right, guys. Well, I gotta take care of some stuff, so I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. But yeah, good stream. Good stream. I think this was a really good video. I'm gonna pay attention to True Vanguard here. He his videos, like his content has been video game content. This is his main channel, I think, here. Yeah. Oh, they buffed Namor? Alright. Yeah, but it's just like video game stuff. You know, this is usually what he's doing.
Familiar with his kit, but let's cover.
And like, I've been following him because he used to do Destiny. He used to play Destiny, which I used to play all the time. But now he plays Rivals, which I also play now all the time.
To go more frequently. And then they buffed the health of your
you know, every gamer is you know, don't let people think, don't let people lead you to the thought process that gamers are just misogynists and crazy racist and whatever. You know, gamers are pretty woke.
Move the needle a little bit in some of these TTKs, and we'll get into that
in
the next section.
All right, guys, y'all have a good one.
Each ability and
I'll
how much damage they do.
Oh wait,
so let's start with primary fire.
Hold on.
Guys, Namor's primary fire is kinda nuts. You never have to reload it. You know, you never have to reload it. It does 75 damage to the body and 150 to the head. Pause.
Here's the outro. Different song on the outro. Check this out. So, Bad Bunny ended his halftime show saying, "Estamos aquí. Estamos aquí." That's what he's saying in this video. He's saying,